No sign of Shane on Monday morning, but she got up early, just after Michael would have evaporated into mist. In fact, she showered and grabbed a Pop-Tart from the cabinet for breakfast, washed the dishes that had been dumped in the sink from last night's disaster of parental dinner. Hadn't that been Michael's job? And emptied out her backpack to stuff in the metal canister, to return to the chem lab, which made it borrowing, not stealing, and the Bible with its concealed secret. And then she thought, it won't do any good if they just steal it from me. And took it out again, and put it in the shelves, wedged in between an old volume 10 of the World Encyclopedia, and some novel she'd never heard of. Then she stepped out, locked the door, and began walking toward the school. The chem lab was busy when she arrived, between classes, and she had no trouble slipping into the supply room to put the canister back in place, after carefully wiping her fingerprints from everything she could think of. That moral duty done, she hustled to the admissions office to put in her paperwork to withdraw from school. Nobody seemed surprised. She supposed that there were a lot of withdrawals or disappearances. It was noon when she walked down to Common Grounds. Eve was just arriving, yawning and bleary-eyed. She looked surprised to see Claire as she handed over the cup of tea. "I thought you weren't supposed to leave the house," she said. "Michael and Shane—" "I need to talk to Oliver," Claire said. "He's in the back." Eve pointed in the office. "Claire, is there anything wrong?" "No. I think something's about to be right for a change." The door marked office was closed. She knocked, heard Oliver's warm voice telling her to enter, and came in. He was sitting behind a small desk in a very small room, windowless, with a computer running in front of him. He smiled at her and stood up to shake her hand. "Claire," he said, "good to see you're safe. I heard there had been some unpleasantness." Oliver was wearing a tie-dyed Grateful Dead t-shirt and blue jeans with faded patches on the knees. Not so much style as wear, she figured. He looked tired and concerned, and she thought suddenly that there was something about him a lot like Michael, except that he was here in the daytime, of course, and at night, so he couldn't be a ghost, could he? "Brandon is very unhappy," he said. "I'm afraid that there's going to be retaliation. Brandon likes striking from an angle, not straight on, so you'd better watch out for your friends as well. That would include Eve, of course. I've asked her to be extra careful." She nodded, heart in her throat. What if I have something to trade?" Oliver sat down and leant back in his chair. "Trade for what? And to whom?" Something important. I don't want to be more specific than that. I'm afraid you're going to have to be if you want me to act as any kind of go-between for you. I can't trade if I don't know what I'm offering." She realized she was still holding her teacup and put it down on the corner of the desk. I'd rather do it myself, but I don't know who to go to. Whoever can order Brandon around, I guess. Or even higher than that. There is a social order to the vampire community. Brandon's hardly at the top. There are two factions, you know. Brandon is part of one, the darker side. I suppose you could say it depends on your viewpoint. Certainly from a human standpoint, neither faction is exactly lily-white. He shrugged. "I can help you, if you'll let me. Believe me, you don't want to try to contact these people on your own. And I'm not sure they'd even allow you to do so." She bit her lip, thinking about what Michael had said about the deal in Morganville. She wasn't good at it. She knew that, and she didn't know how the rules. Oliver did. Or he'd have been already been dead a long time ago. Besides, he was Eve's boss, and she liked him. Plus, he'd been able to keep Brandon from biting her at least twice. That had to count for something. Okay. I have the book. Oliver's grey eyebrows came down into a straight line. The book. You know, the book. Claire, I hope you understand what you're saying, because you can't be wrong about this, and you absolutely can't lie. Bluffing will get you, and all your friends killed. No mercy. Others have tried, passing off fakes or pretending to have it, then running. They all died. All of them. Do you understand? She swallowed again, convulsively. Her mouth felt very dry. She tried to remember how it had felt last night, being warm and full of light, but the day was cold and hard and scary. And Shane wasn't here. "Yes," she whispered, "I understand. But I have it. I don't think it's a fake. And I'm willing to trade for it." Oliver didn't blink. She tried to look away, but there was something about him, something hard and demanding, and she felt a real surge of fear.
All right. But you can't do this by yourself. You're too young, and you're too fragile. I'll undertake this for you, but I'll need proof.
What kind of proof?
I need to see the book. Take photographs of it, of at least the cover and one inside page, to prove that it's legitimate.
I thought vampires couldn't read it.
They can't, at least according to legend. It's the symbol, like the protection symbols. It has properties that humans can't really understand. In this case, it confuses the sense of vampires. Only humans can read the words inside. But a photograph removes the confusion, and vampires will be able to see the symbol for what it is. Wonderful thing, technology.
He glanced at the clock.
I have a meeting this afternoon that I can't postpone. I'll come to your house this evening, if that's all right. I'd like a chance to speak with Shane and Eve, as well. And your other friend, the one I've never seen come in. Michael, correct? Michael Glass?
She found herself nodding, a little alarmed and not even sure why she would be. It was okay, wasn't it? Oliver was one of the good guys. And she had no idea whom else she could turn to, not in Morganville. Brandon? Right. There was a good option. Tonight, she echoed. Okay. She stood up and walked out, feeling strangely cold. Eve looked up at her, frowned, and tried to come after her, but there were people crowding at the coffee bar, and Claire hurried to the door and escaped before Eve could corner her. She didn't want to talk about it. She was sickly certain she'd just made a terrible mistake, but she didn't know what, or why, or how. She was so caught up in it, lost in her own head and lulled by the hot safety of the sun, not to mention people on the streets, that she forgot not all the dangers came at night. In Morganville, the first warning she had, in fact, was the low rumble of an engine, and then she was being knocked off balance and stumbling against the sun-heated finish of a van door, which slid aside. She was being pushed from one side, pulled from the other, and before she could do more than yelp, she was in the van. Bodies were piling on top of her, and the van door slammed shut on the sun. She slid on the carpeted floor as the van accelerated off, and heard whoops of laughter, girls' laughter. Someone was kneeling on her chest, making it hard to breathe. She tried to twist and throw her off, but it didn't work. When she blinked away stars, she saw that the person on top of her was Gina, looking freshly made up and fashion perfect, except for the sick gleam in her eyes. Monica was kneeling next to her, smiling a tight, cruel little smile. Jennifer was driving. There were a couple of other girls in the van, too. One she remembered from the basement confrontation at the dorm. Apparently, Monica was still recruiting, and these two had made the cut to advanced psycho school. "Get off me!" Claire yelled and tried to bat at Gina. Monica grabbed her hands and yanked them over her head, painfully hard. "Bitch, get off!" Monica punched her in the stomach, driving out what little air she had, and Claire whooped for breath. Gina's weight made it incredibly hard to breathe. Could you kill somebody like this? Smother a person like this? Maybe the victim was small, like her. The van was still going, taking her farther and farther away from safety. "You," Monica said, leaning over her, "really pissed me off, Fish. I don't forget things like that. Neither does my boyfriend. Brandon? Geez, at least get one with a pulse." For that, she got punched again, and this time it hurt bad enough she started to cry, furious and helpless. Gina put a hand around her neck and began to squeeze. Not enough to kill her, just enough to hurt and make it even harder to gasp for precious little air. They could keep this up for hours if they wanted, but Claire thought they probably had a lot more in store. Sure enough, Monica reached in her pocket and brought out a lighter, one of those butane ones with a long, bright flame. She brought it close to Claire's face. "We're going to have a barbecue," she said. "Roast freak. If you live, you're going to be hideous. But shouldn't worry about that, because you probably won't live anyway." Claire screamed with whatever she had, which wasn't much. It startled Monica, and it positively scared Jennifer, who was driving. She twisted to look back, turning the wheel. She said, "Mistake." The van careened to the right and smashed into something solid. Claire flew through the air, with Gina riding her like a magic carpet, crashed into the padded back of the seats, and Monica and Gina rolled in confusion as the van skidded to a stop.